My name is Jayanti. I'm born in 1949, so that makes me nearly 77. I was in Kenya mainly because my parents were Kenya. I was born in Kenya. The British administration during British Raj had endangered people coming from southeast sort of Indian subcontinent down to Kenya, and that's where I ended up. Life in Kenya, I think it was carefree, no issues with security, no issues with terrorism, but apartheid existed. There were what the British administration called European, African, and Indian living areas, schools, everything was segregated. Everybody thinks apartheid happened in South Africa, but it actually happened in most of the British colonies. Impacted in everyday life, there are three mother tongues. There is Gujarati at home, Swahili in the street, and English in school. So you had that. English curriculum was about English kings and queens, in school. Most of the things in schools were related to who ruled when, what. I know more about Normans and Stuarts than I know about Kenyan freedom fighters. Why did I decide to leave Kenya? I think the decision was already made because I did my A-levels in Kenya. Incidentally, the A-levels were Cambridge High School certificate. And at that time, most of the people from South Asia had just about enough money to send the kids to higher education. Also, the political climate in East Africa was changing because the countries were becoming independent. And most of the rhetoric of the British administration was Africans are going to ruin the country. So quite a lot of us left. I left Kenya to go to the university straight away. So I had student visas and I went to Southampton University. Now that's another story. I had a British passport, but I still needed student visas to come to Britain. So in my case, it wasn't, my parents left Kenya good 5 years after me. So in my case, it was really to come to university. When I traveled to England, it was, most of us could only afford charter flights. So there was a chartered flight from Nairobi to Benghazi and then on to Luton Airport, believe it or not. And from Luton Airport, you took a country bus, which was green country buses at the time, down to North London, stayed with a distant cousin for about 3 weeks, and then traveled by train to Southampton. At the station in Southampton, I was picked up by the Students' Union minibus and taken to the university and knew nothing else whatsoever. First impression of coming to England was a culture shock. In Kenya, there were people with big machetes cutting trees or cutting bushes. In Britain, late summer, hedges were being cut by machinery. There were tractors and machinery and vertical sort of lawn trimmers, etc., which cut the hedges a lot. And then there was a second culture shock that everything, for example, tarmacking the road, was done mechanized and was done by one person driving a truck, whereas in Kenya there were 10s and 15s old people putting tarmac on the road. So the first impression was a culture shock. I came to England in 1968. When I was at university, it's very interesting because the first, it was a hall of residence, which was a fully catered hall of residence. And I had declared myself as a vegetarian. And of course, the first meal arrived, and it was egg omelette. I didn't eat eggs. So the idea of vegetarianism was completely different. Secondly, to get spices, you need to get to a specialist shop 1.5, 2 miles away from Southampton, from the halls of residence, let alone samosas. You couldn't get spices in those days. These days you get samosas in every supermarket in the country. So, in a way that was impression. The other impression was most of the local students were on student grant, and they saw anybody who paid overseas student fees as being filthy rich, to coin a phrase. So you had a respect which was undeserved. The other thing that really stands out in my mind is going to the pub for the first time. Now, remember, I had English A-levels. I had academically very good at English, and I couldn't understand a word that was being said in the pub. So very soon you recognize that language is power, and you begin to learn those languages, and that's what happened at university. Especially when you are bloody-minded like me, where you ask a question, every time somebody says something, you say, what does that mean? And that requires you to have language power. Assimilation was fairly easy because of the language, because of the ability to articulate what you want to say. Yet, also cracking jokes and making serious points with humor. For example, if you see somebody who has got some curiosity or vague notions about racism, say, and they have a curiosity about your background and they make assumptions. So you crack a joke saying, I can be humble if you want me to humble. I can be humiliating if that's what you expect from people like me. However, listen to what I have to say, don't look at me. And that power of language did definitely help. I could debate with most of the people, but it took some time. It was a couple of years before I got quite fluent at ability to speak English. English as spoken, not English as written, and not English as studied for exams. I have quite a few funny moments. Southampton University had a reg week, and part of the reg week was collecting for charity. And we put up a stunt whereby we saw some Middle Eastern sheikh coming down for hovercraft things. And during the reg week, I dressed up in Arab costume to do the collection. And it wasn't funny. It was serious and funny, where somebody on the street said, "You mucky Arab," and that sort of defined everything about it, about life in Britain. I met my wife at university. We got married just after I finished, but immediately after university, she did law, never practiced it. I went on what was then known as Engineering Industries Training Board. Now, Engineering Industries Training Board, where all engineering employers paid levy through the board, and then people got the money, the companies got the money out of it to train people. So I went on a graduate apprenticeship. It took me around whole of the UK. I was employed by Procter & Gamble at the time, or sponsored by them, and to them it was a cost center. They made 105% back from the 100% they contributed. So it was quite good. It was good for me because I went to places such as Colchester, Shipwreck Foundry, all the engineering products that were done. Very soon realized it wasn't for me, there were usual racist comments, like the managing director where I was first employed said to me, "Oh, Jayanti, that's a mouthful of a name. Shall we call you Jack?" And I said, "No, you will not." And that's really being firm about, because my name is important to me. Yeah. So I came back and started research at the university after that in 1974. I used the name. Name is important to all the people. It's a name that somebody has given. It's a name they've known themselves by. I do not want to make life easy for anybody else. It's their problem, not mine. If they think it's difficult, better learn how to do it, deal with it, and not get somebody else to accommodate you. I have stuck by my guns in that respect for the last 50 years. I bought the first house in 1974, but only stayed, it was in a large estate, sort of housing estate, stayed only 18 months there, and then moved to the present house in 1978. So I talk about the present house. I've been in the same house since 1978, bought it for £17,250. And it's a nice Victorian house. It's a sort of long house, and everything happened. Mind you, the house is full of junk collected over 50 years as well. In order to buy the house, because I was at university had a 100% mortgage scheme. I took advantage of it when I first bought that house. Little bit of struggle, but not very much of a struggle. I think at that time it was about 3 times or 4 times the salary. I paid off the house somewhere in the region of year 2000, somewhere around there. Yeah, didn't really go around to sort of pay it off, but it just happened. What have I enjoyed about living in England? I've enjoyed I always say people are people. And what I've enjoyed is if people are willing to listen, then you can have a conversation with them. If people have a closed mind, then you have an argument with them. It's quite simple. So when people, I think a lot of things have changed. For example, in the early days in Southampton, where you could not get food which you liked, now you can get any type of food anywhere in Southampton, which is fairly good. You can get it in lots of parts. In those days, in order to get something, you had to go to London. Whether it's food or whether it is something. But mind you, I always say, if you want to learn about the world, go to the British Museum, because British Museum has got everything about everything in the world, or British Library for that matter. They know more about India, Pakistan, Kenya, East Africa, then those countries have got literature, because most of it has ended up in Britain. There's a friend of mine I go walking with in Southern Common. We do about 5 miles every morning. And he is Muslim. He was born in Dudley, yeah, and he says he's a Pakistani. So I said, what makes you Pakistani? You're born in Dudley. You've never been, you've been to Pakistan for a visit. Your mother was born in what is now India. Your father was born in what is now Pakistan. Pakistani, what makes you Pakistani? And that's a question I ask. I've never been to India. Yet the rest of the society want me to be an Indian. So I oblige them. But seriously, I think I have spent the last 50 years of my life trying to improve the environment around me, trying to improve what is happening. My neighborhood is my community. My neighbor is my community. And that's what I've tried to do. I do not partake in any sort of religious or charitable functions for either Kenya or India. It is when you got starving people or disabled people on the same street as you, why do you go around the world to feed people or cater for disabled people elsewhere? So I'm very, very parochial and local. Every Sunday morning, I take part in street cleaning. We have got a very good gardening group which puts gardens in houses of multiple occupation, etc. We got all sorts of things. I take an active part in politics, and I call out people if they need to be called out. Give you a very good example of how you deal with it. I was at a barbecue some years ago. I get involved with these things, I don't know why. It was a local MP's house. We were at barbecue, and this white guy sort of says to me, do you get to go home often? So I said, yeah, every evening. I live around the corner. He went all red in the face, only as white people can. And he met me in a shopping center near my house 2 weeks later. And he says, I put my foot in it, didn't I? So I said, yes, you did. And he says, I only wanted to talk to you about my holiday to India. So I said, you put your foot in it again. I've never been to India. Yeah. What makes you think I would be interested in your holiday to India? Yeah. And so, in a way, being able to talk, and he remained a good friend, But being able to do it with sort of sense of humor, but still making a strong point, is what makes me feel I'm still struggling very hard to say I belong here. Because the rest of the society comes out and says, where are you from? What do you do? Where are you from? Do you go home often? And it's a sort of thing where people try to not listen to what you have to say, but look at you and assume that you must know a lot about India, mustn't you? Because all the people in India look like you. So occasionally I ask these white guys, are you German? Are you German? Yeah. Because they all, just as a matter of fact, I was in a sauna at the swimming pool, and some white lady came up to me in there and says to me something like, which part of India do you come from? So I said, madam, which part of Poland do you come from? And she says, I'm not Polish. So I said, what makes you think I'm Indian? Yeah, people confuse religion with nationality, with skin color and appearance. And that confusion is completely, universal. In Britain, it's universal. What do your people think? My people think, yeah. First of all, define my people. I'm not religious. I was brought up as a Jain. My grandmother didn't even eat any root vegetables because they had to dig it up. They only ate whatever fell from the tree. Yeah. So I was brought up as Jain, but I'm not religious. I mean, some people argue Jainism is a religion, but that's up to them. Me not being religion really changed when I went to the first meeting of the Jain community in London. And the motion before them was, should we accept women who are married to Jains and are not Jains themselves as members of the community? And when they passed that motion, 80 to 20, I said, not for me, thank you. People are people. My mantra is, people are people. I'm not religious, but I still have a mantra.
Fantastic. And did you marry an Indian or Kenyan lady?
No. That's another joke. My mother refers to her as English. And I used to say to my mom, please don't refer to her English. She will get annoyed with you because she's Welsh. Yeah, and that sort of situation. Talking about my mother, can I? My mother died in 2022. And she was born when King George V was on the throne and there was British Empire. Then we had Edward, George VI, Elizabeth, and she died just before Queen Elizabeth died. And most of her life she's known British monarchs, yet her background, her childhood is Indian. She was born in India, she was brought up in India. So therefore, thinking about India as home, I have incredible discussions with him because most of her life she spent in Britain. Yeah. Yet she thinks India is her home. It's unavoidable if you've been brought up with that, and especially when somebody who relies entirely on memory, not on smartphones, not on things which are entirely, she remembers everybody's birthdays, or she remembered everybody's birthdays by memory, entirely by memory, and I wish I could do that. I got married in 1973. What my father and mother thought about that in terms of... Yeah, I got married to this lady I met in university from Wales, from Wallis in the South Wales. I can't do the accent, but anyway, I got married. What my parents thought about it was exactly the same as what her parents thought about it, whereas this won't last. We are still married 50 years later. So in a way, there was a rift, there was some sort of objection to it. But very soon, things were accepted. In those days, sort of what is currently going, and I never understand this, what is currently referred to as multiracial marriages. How there's only one human race, so I don't know what they mean when they say multiracial marriages. However, in those days, it was frowned upon, more so than now. But I ask this question when people talk about multiracial marriages. Is a black guy and a white guy, both Indian, marrying each other, is it a multiracial marriage? It's all about color. I asked the question about Northern Ireland. Is marriage between Catholic and Protestant sort of mixed heritage marriage or multiracial marriage? Those are the sort of questions you have to ask, and you come back to a single conclusion. People are people. There is one human race. There was, I think, my wife was working as a probation officer in Southampton for a few years. She gave up her job. I stood in local elections in 1982 when my wife was pregnant with the first child. I lost because we were fighting Falklands War, and Margaret Thatcher just wiped the board. I decided then that being into politics or local elections was a cul-de-sac because you have to deal with all sorts of things. So I stayed with my single agenda item. And answer to my single agenda item is anti-racism. In 2022, I was given MBE.
Oh, no.
And when that was offered, I got a letter from the cabinet office saying something like, we are minded to give you an MBE for services to Southampton, Hampshire. So I said, services to Southampton, Hampshire. What does that mean? Does it mean that I've got a nice clean garden in front of the house? That would be a service to Southampton and Hampshire, wouldn't it? What would it mean? So they said, well, because I was going to reject it. And they said, well, suggest something. Suggest something. We got this from your nomination. So I said, for promoting anti-racism in Southampton and Hampshire, and thinking they won't have it. They accepted it. So I had no choice but to accept the MBA. But that was in 2022. I didn't go to Palace to get it. I went to the local Lord Lieutenant to get it, and in Winchester. And the Lord Lieutenant says, 10 years ago you gave me a badge, Nefertiti badge for Black History Month. In 2005 I had started with Don John, Black History Month in Southampton. I said, right, so you are now returning the honor, are you? Because he was giving me an MBA. So I equated the two. To me, so the lesson about younger generation is you can be subversive in accepting an MBA on your terms, not their terms. You can be revolutionary, but what you have to do is be brave and stick with your ideas and stick with what you want to do. Yeah? Don't let other people decide. Don't assume things about people. Find out about them before you even speculate, before you even stereotype somebody. One of the biggest problems is people make assumptions, and based on those assumptions, stereotype people, as to what they are going to be like. Yeah. And until they listen to me, they don't know what they have hit. My hope for the project is quite simple. The project would be to build citizens of the future who treat people as people and not be nostalgic about past. What we do is, yes, we learn about past, learn from the past, but we adapt it to present. I never have an argument or a discussion with anybody who has got faith, because you can't argue with faith. It's a belief. You can't deal with it. So my hope will be respect that people have faith, although you may or may not agree with it. Yeah, respect that fact, but at the end of the day, be yourself.